Hello everyone. Welcome back again to SBO Learning and Unlearning series that we have been doing for the past 2 years. This is season two, second session. We're happy to involve as well as invite Venugopal as the slides shows. He was from 7A, 8A, 9C, and 10C. He currently lives in Singapore. I think he's been there for around a decade or more. He started his engineering there. Uh, he will be talking on the topic that is sort of interesting and not so common for the general public on the experience that he has in marshalling in F1. This is recorded on Sunday, October 22nd, 26th, sorry, for the benefit of the larger audience. This will go into our YouTube channel that we have recently started. And then let's go from here, right? Over to you, Venu. Thank you for taking your time, although it's late in Singapore. Uh, Looking
No
forward.
problem. Yeah. Thanks, Madanish. Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. Hi, everyone. Venu, my name is Venu, as Madanish already mentioned. Yeah, I thought it would make it easier for everyone if I put like all the sections I was in through the years. So it's easier to probably identify or recognize me. So when Madanish asked me if I wanted to talk, I really didn't know what to talk about. So I scratched my head for a bit, and the best I think I could come up with is something like what I felt also was probably a bit uncommon. It is in terms of like marshalling in F1. So basically, I've been kind of volunteering at the Singapore Grand Prix from like 2016 onwards. So I've done like 2016, 17, 18, 19. So 4 years. And what would have been my fifth year was basically when COVID hit. So 2 years of COVID break. Then I decided I'll take 2 years of personal break. And then I got back to marshalling again from last year. So 24 and 25 is where I've been back in marshalling in F1 at Singapore. So my experiences, my thing is mainly centered or like is with respect to Singapore. But I think some of the points I'll highlight and kind of try to walk you guys through how what all a marshal does um, is kind of applicable not just for Singapore but in general as well. And it's something that probably the next time we watch the next season of Drive to Survive, you can actually cross check and see if the marshal there is doing their job correctly. Yeah, but don't report them. Poor fellows are all volunteers. We don't get paid. Yeah.
Hey, Venu, can
Okay.
little louder, one notch louder, little.
Okay. Yeah. Can
Thank
it
you.
should be better, I think.
Yeah,
And hold it close. Yeah.
yeah. And is it okay for people to pause you on questions, or you want to take it last?
No, I mean, you can pause me anytime. Pause
Okay.
and ask me the questions anytime.
Thank,
No problem.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
There's no like it's not heavy stuff that requires things to explain or understand in sequence. So yeah, anytime is fine. So I was hunting around for a good visual. I was actually hunting around for a good image that I could use in the cover page. I found thankfully Google had this nice GIF of the Singapore Grand Prix, some race start as well. So I thought I'll just use that. Just in case anyone is confused what I'm going to be talking about, it's about these guys. Yeah, or my experience in the races with these guys. Okay, so basically for those of you who are, I know Madanish is one. I'm not sure how many of the rest of you are into quizzing, but theoretically you have to be very careful when someone asks you when was the first Grand Prix in Singapore, because technically the answer is 1961. And what you see here, for example, is the old circuit that they used to have, and this was between like 1961 and 1973, right? So what happened was after 1973, they realized that the number of fatalities was a lot, so they stopped, right? And it took like about till 2008 to kind of get to the image that you see on the right, which is like the sort of the iconic or the more representative image these days of the F1 circuit that happens in Singapore. So for those of you who are a bit familiar with the Singapore landmarks, I hope you can see my cursor. So this should be the Singapore Flyer. It is the giant wheel, in my opinion. This is the Marina Bay Sands, right? So you can see like some of the more historic, not historic, the more tourist attraction places that is there in the central business district area, um, that are all like kind of like nearby this street circuit these days, right? So this is so from here to here, the transition has taken about like 30 years, 35 years. So finally, they started from 2008, and I joined, like I said, only in 2016. And for a long period, I was very quite interested in joining, but really didn't know how to. Till I learned that there was like a sign up timing and sign up page that you have to that was open to the public, like about like March, April. And so then that's where I kind of joined and signed up. So how does the sort of the circuit look like? So if the one on the left, if you see, is basically the inaugural circuit how it was in 2008. I mean, I know if you look at it, it doesn't really look very different across the years, but there are like sort of subtle changes that have been happening over the years. So this is the very first one. So the very first one in 2008. Um, was it was also at that point of time it was generally night race, and it was also I think that race that I also ended up in a fair amount of controversy. So for those of you who have who are like quite knowledgeable in this, you will know that one of the current the one of the drivers who's still racing even now, Fernando Alonso, his teammate was actually deliberately crashed his car based on like some team orders so that they could get the safety car at an advantageous time, and then basically he could win that race. So it was like became like a big scandal years. So
Yasuda, can you unmute, please? Thanks.
yeah, so it became like a big scandal. I think a year or two after that, and I think like parts of the circuit also they had to based on drivers' feedback. For example, if you see here, right, there's a I can share the I mean this is basically from Wikipedia, but this thing here for what's called 10 marked as 10 was not as well. It's like a small bumpy kind of a thing compared to the ones that you see here, which are which are nice like left hands and right hand which are left hand turns, right? So Nala, what happens is that they've over the years they've also reprofiled the turns themselves, and as they go about. The reason I picked the SGP, the ones at the top and bottom, is because this is also the ones where I have been part of it. So I can tell you, like the first year I was at turn 19. Um, Nothing really happened there, but there's a kind of a nice barrier between 19 and 20, the numbers 19 and 20. And I think during the qualifying session, one of the cars actually was very, very close, and I think it also slightly made contact to the wall there. So it was quite thrilling as a first time person to see. You're up close, you're on the ground, you're seeing the circuit, and you're seeing the cars go by, and it's bloody noisy. So it was quite thrilling. The next year,
Venu, the one that you have put in terms of 5 kilometers laps, is this an average thing that works across Grand Prix or across locations in terms
no,
of
so usually some of the circuits can have like a longer, what do you call, lap length, but usually it is capped such that the whole race duration, the race distance is about 300 kilometers, roughly there. So you can kind of gauge if like your lap is going to be roughly 5 kilometers, then you know that your race is going to be about 60 laps. Basically, the number that you look out for is the distance is about 300 kilometers. But having said that, they also have an upper limit for duration as well. And that means that you can't have a race that goes on for more than 2 hours, which is also, I mean, part of the reason is the point number four as well, because drivers lose a lot of fluids. And just over the course of the race, especially in Singapore, I was reading up, they can lose up to like 4 kilos or something, just because of the enormous amount of dehydration they undergo. So to limit that, they kind of have like an upper thing of 2 hours. So it's either 2 hours or 60, 62 laps, whichever comes first. And usually when you will reach that upper limit for the duration is when you have like a massive crash somewhere. So the race is kind of stopped and then restarted. So that's when you have like you can come into the position where come into a scenario where there's a lot more that happens that is controlled by the duration than the actual number of laps. And the other sort of interesting thing that I about the race is that about like so if you see the previous image, right? So you see this part that is all bright, and that's because it's been like about 1,600 floodlights that are installed over for the duration of the race. And because it's also a street circuit, it's basically regular for most part. They're regular roads, so they are just closed off to the traffic, and you can see that. I mean, so they are closed off to the traffic, and like the kind of the barriers are put in place and all of that. So just coming back to the circuit itself, so you can see like between the two times that I've two sets of times I've done, the circuit itself has changed. So the numbers here typically represent like a turn. I should have mentioned that at the start. So like one here is like it probably be the first turn, then you have a second turn, which is two, and three, four. Or like, usually it's like the number of turns that is more of interest to a lot of people um, who are following. So you always go by like turn 13, turn 12, turn 10, whatever it is. Right. And usually where the marshals are located is also somewhere near the turns because that's where some of the action happens. So if you need to do something, that is also really kind of where you are. And so what happened was that between the two terms that I did, um, if you see here, the 16, 17, 18, 19 has been kind of replaced by a straight one from 15 to 16 here. So this used to be an interesting. This is for those of any of you who know, this used to be that what is it called? Float. There used to be a floating platform here. Used to have like a grandstand here, but they've kind of removed that for like renovation works and all of that. So that's how this circuit is set up at the moment. And every year there's like a slight modification that happens. Not it's not necessary that every year the circuit is the same. There's a slight modification here or there that happens. So just to give you an idea, if you want to know how big it is across the event, this is roughly the number of people that are involved, and these are all like for most part marshals. You can discount the folks in the white in front, but the rest of it is basically for most part are the marshals. So can you guys guess? I mean, you can either type your answer or it's like you can unmute and answer as well. Can you guess the number of people that typically are around for an event, the marshal?
Roughly around 2000 maybe.
Sorry.
2000 maybe.
Okay. The number you've given is doubled, so it's the number is about like 900 to about 1,000.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
And all of these are marshals only marshals. And this 1,000 or 900 is an average thing that typically is for the other locations as well, or it depends on the complexity of the circuit, etc.
So it need not depend on the complexity of the circuit. It also depends on how many people want to do at that for the different races as well. So for Singapore in general, the number is about like thousand people.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah. Because there's, I think, a fair number of terms here, you can accommodate a fair number of people as well. So that's really how you have. So some of the people that you see, like say the black, thing, they're like some of them are like the officials or people associated with running the event, and they're kind of like senior officials as well. Who are the ones in black. The ones in white are the guys from FIA. So they are the ones who dictate the kind of to a certain extent they dictate the race, right? So and then for the different colors and the different marshals, I'll kind of I have a slide that is going to I'll talk to you more about that. But this is like roughly the entire bit that has been kind of squeezed into a single photo. About 1,000 odd people that are there. Um, Yeah, we have actually, in fact, the part I was in, I had like teammates from who flew on specifically from Australia and from the UK just to be part of this event, right? So that's another thing that I've seen through the years. And in fact, the first couple of years, I had a guy. The first year actually, there's a guy who came down from Hungary and a guy who came from Sri Lanka. I think from my second year onwards, the Hungarian guy didn't come, but the Sri Lankan guy used to come. He was like a repeat guy. And he was a pretty kind of like he had a fair amount of experience as well. So we used to like turn to him for advice and all of that. So it's like sort of pretty international in the way the number of the volunteers that they managed to get as well. So it's not just the locals, but also like folks from all over the world pretty much who are willing to travel distances to get here. So I thought what I would do next is just walk you guys through like what is it that all of the folks in the previous image, or at least most of the folks in the previous image, and what if you ever see an F1 show like Drive to Survive, you'll see the marshals are like in this sort of kind of I wouldn't say costume, but this sort of a dress, right? And I thought I'll just kind of highlight what they are. I think some of them are like pretty obvious. So you have like the overalls, the cap, the safety goggles, and earplugs. The one I found fascinating, and in fact, it's something that I'd learned only after I actually joined F1, is this word called tabard, which is the one that you see in white here, right? It tells you what the number is and like what the role is. So basically, one of the things with the tabard is that anyone who goes down into the track, if you're going to the track, you must have a tabard. Of course, if you're the public and it's the last day of the event, then that's a different story. There's something called the track invasion where you're allowed to walk the track after the event is done. But at any other point in time, if you ever want to go down near the track, you have to necessarily have this tabard out. So and they give you this uh, once only, in the sense that every year when you sign in for the first time, you get a tabard and you have to kind of maintain it over the 3 days, three and a half days that you need to take part for the event. If you don't have this tabard, you likely will not be allowed access onto the into the track. That's what they say. I've not tested it. I've just believed them. But yeah, I thought this is like a pretty interesting bit, which is not at least to me as a layman before I joined the F1 thing. I was not aware of it. The only other difference in the image, apart from the fact that I gained weight, is that we have this. You see the headset, and this is a sort of a comms headset that is very kind of typical uh, for a couple of roles that are there within the F1 itself, right? Um, so the next one I want to talk to you about is like how this is organized. So let me just go back a couple of slides. So if you remember, I was telling you like all the marshals are at the different turns, right? So for turn one or turn two or turn three, whatever it is, usually near that you have a post that is usually referred to as a sector. So basically, if I were to tell you where I was, I would tell you like in 2024, I was at sector 16, and this year I was at sector 13. Either sector or turn, you can say either. But usually we refer to it as sector because it's also the collection of the folks who are there at that particular location. If you see, and how is it organized there? So it's like it has its own sort of, in a manner of speaking, hierarchy. So you can see that there's a sector chief, kind of like typically oversees the whole, he's like the supremo for that particular sector. He's one of the senior officials essentially. And then you have like these people who are training to be sector chiefs. So the sector chief basically kind of like runs the show. But he in turn can he or she can in turn delegate it to like the training sector chiefs and let them take over the show and like see how they do. And underneath these training sector chiefs, we have these sort of the three main sort of lead marshals. There's a lead track, there's a lead flag, and a lead observer. So basically, what the observer does is, I mean, the names are kind of like self-explanatory, but I'll just give you a bit more context. Like for the observer, it is their duty to sort of call in and tell like the race control, hey race control, this is post 13 or whatever. Car number, I don't know if there are Hamilton fans here, but car number 44 has just cut the corner at turn 13, right? For example. So that sort of information is relayed from the ground to race control, who's the one that dictates the race by the observer, by the lead observer and his team of observers, his or her team of observers. So then you have the flag marshals, who are basically the ones who are the ones. If you see any episode, there's like some fellows out there waving the flags, especially when there is an incident, right? When there's a crash or something, or when a car is stopped, there are folks who are the ones waving the flag, and they are the flag marshals. Again, led by a lead flag. And the track marshal is the ones who kind of like go out on track. So again, if there's a crash, the car would usually need to be recovered. And so then you have these track marshals are the ones who will go out along with the recovery marshal to go and pick up the car and bring it back into the sector. They take it to wherever it can be taken. So these are like the kind of different roles that are there. And apart from them, there's also the fire marshals. So these are like only some of the roles that are like reporting to this sort of a hierarchy. The fire marshals, of course, they don't have a lead fire marshal or anything of the sort in the sector because it's usually just one or two fire marshals. So for observers, you can have like maybe 3 or 4 observers. Flag, you can have like usually at least like 4 flags, and track marshals can also be like 3 or 4. So if you can already count like I've said, like 4, 4, 4, 12 plus another 2, 14 plus another 2 folks here, 16 plus another 2, 18 plus 1, 19, roughly, right? Um, Apart from this, you can also have like you can have like a medical team. You can have like crowd control marshals, and then you have like all these different people who keep coming and going, like photographers, FIA accredited photographers, videographers. Then there's like engineering service providers who are also sitting there. Then you have like these other chief, other chiefs as well, who just sometimes there are roving chiefs, roving marshals as well. So who keep walking around the whole circuit. So everyone can keep coming and going in sort of this sort of a scenario, right? So just to give you an idea, so this is how my sector was this year, so 2025. So you can see most of us are in orange here. I'm not sure how visible. So if you see the gentleman behind here, this guy was actually a fire marshal. So his what do you call, the overall is actually red in color, and it's actually a thicker material than what the rest of us wear as a overalls. Because they are fire marshals and they should be able to go out in term to handle any fire scenario. So theirs is like a more fireproof material, and they also have to wear the uh, balaclava during the race. So right now, because it's not the race time, they have like you can see his face, but otherwise during the race, he's usually wearing the balaclava and potentially sweating inside it as well, given that how hot it is. So this gentleman here, you can see, is in black. He's a sector chief, so the sort of the supremo for this particular sector, and the rest of us are like, for most part, just the marshals. The couple of ladies here that you see in green, they are the medical team. So they are usually also like doctors or paramedics or nurses, and they have like separate instructions that they get from the chief medical officials, and but they are usually attached to a sector, so they are also there listening and watching the race, and kind of like also they are also volunteering their time. So all of us that you see here are all kind of like volunteers volunteering our time. And as I was telling you, where I was sector 13. They usually say the reason it says 13 hour is because it kind of gives you the location where the sector is in relation to the driver. So here it says 13 hour. So basically the sector or where we are located is basically turn 13 to the driver's right. So if I go back to the thing, so because it's a anti-clockwise circuit, you come down here and you see there's 13, so we are somewhere here, all the way near the number that you see. So roughly there is where we are stationed. And this is like a nice straight. So yeah, that goes all the way to about like 14. So there's another sector that does a part of the job here, but we were somewhere here, 30. And then just to give you an idea, I keep telling you that there's other marshals as well. So you can see, for example, these gentlemen also in black. These guys are the crowd control marshals. So their job is basically to ensure that nobody tries to jump in or like go to the track or do anything. The crowd behaves and doesn't do anything funny, and kind of like prevent that from happening as much as possible. Now, the one that you see here, the JCB, is the crane that was stationed at our sector. And usually you will have like these sort of cranes that are stationed at like every few um, locations so that they can access the track and they can kind of like help with the recovery. So basically, if you see here, I don't know how clear it is, but you can see like the spreader bar kind of a thing here. So what they will do is that you can essentially, this JCB is quite powerful enough that you can literally hoist and lift up an F1 car as long as it's connected to this bar here. And that in fact that is sometimes how the recovery is done. Like you bring the recovery marshal will go here. I mean will make sure that they can hook it up to the JCB, and then the JCB will kind of bring it back to the location where there's a bit more space and out of the racing circuit itself. So just to give you an idea, this is just a short video that I managed to take. I'm not sure which day of the week it was, but on when I was at the sector.
Just before you do this, when a quick
Yeah.
question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
So all the marshals are expected to be in attendance for all 3 days. I am not an F1 follower, but I presume there are practice day 1, 2, etc., followed by the race day, right? So
Yeah.
it's a combination of the consecutive or 3 to 2 day commit, correct?
Yes. Yes. So technically, right. So for F1 itself, so the Singapore F1 itself takes place only towards like so let's say this year it was on 3rd, 4th, and 5th October. So about 3 weeks back, like literally 3 weeks back. Yeah. So what happens is that we have to go in essentially from Thursday itself, Thursday afternoon itself. FIA does what is known as a speed test. So they will kind of like the sort of the FIA what do you call safety car will kind of do a couple of laps just to test how fast they can go in the circuit, and whether they're able to get good grip and test the readiness of the circuit as well as the readiness of the kind of the marshals, right? So that happens on Thursday evening. Friday is usually when there is for F1 there is the free practice. So there's like the two free practice, and then I think if I'm not wrong, what was it, three? Yeah, there's two free practice. I think that is on Friday, and then Saturday you have qualifying. The main event for Saturday is usually qualifying, which is again happens at night. So most of the stuff for the Singapore F1 by itself happens at night, like around 8 p.m., 9 p.m., that kind of a thing. But what also happens is that while the reporting time for us is about like 11 a.m., and that is because we don't just have the F1 alone happening, we have a couple of support races as well, right? So this year we had the F1 Academy, so which is basically we had like the women drivers, about I think was it 16 of them, if I'm not wrong, that who are racing in Singapore, right? And that was one of them. So they have their own like qualifying race one, race two, all of that. Then we have another one called what is that? The Porsche Carrera Cup. So basically, as you can imagine, as the name says, it's all Porsches who are Porsche Carreras that are like also zooming around the same circuit, also at high speeds. So we have like multiple events that usually happen on the same day, just that there's a bit more space between them, and or rather the events happen through the day, So we are actually at the post like quite early in the day itself. Actually, speaking of that, the support races, right?
think
So I
Money had
must
a question. Money had a
yeah,
question, I think so. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
Sorry to bother. So,
yeah, no.
being a marshal, right? You
Mhm.
guys have specific roles for each other. If it is a fire marshal, are they actually from the fire brigade team, or they are just a volunteers? They go through trainings and understand stuff.
So for most part,
As a
I
layman, you can just enter and do the stuff, right? So you guys went undergo trainings also, or how it is?
yep. So for each of the roles that we do, we have training, specific sector, sorry, role specific, or how they refer to it as specialist training. So for the fire marshals also, it is like regular folks for most part. I don't know if like any of the fire guys are in, but from whoever I've spoken to, they're just regular guys who have undergone like the fire things, fire training, putting a fire extinguishing training sort of, and then they are the ones who will essentially operate the extinguishers that are there at our sector in the event of a fire. So in the same manner, like for flag, if I were a flag marshal, I would have to undergo like the flag training to understand what each of the flags mean and what under what circumstance I'm supposed to use what is the positioning of the flag, how the flag marshals should stand, all of that. Track marshals is also to kind of know like how like what comes under my purview. Like I should always be on the lookout to see if like some debris or something falls, and if there's something that seems fishy, I need to report it so that if necessary, me or like some of the other marshals can kind of like recover it in time so that the race can go on without any interruption. So each role that you see, each of us has our own sort of specialist training that we are expected to undergo. In fact, required to undergo, not even expected, required to undergo before we can, before we are deployed to the circuit or during the race weekend.
And that
Not
means in
actually, but
2000,
kind of a crash course, right?
Yes, it's a crash course, pretty much. Yes.
and that's 2006 that you did. Apo, in the is there an exit criteria of you not meeting the expectation and you do not get to do this job? Or and the question number one. Question number two is it kind of refreshed every time whenever you apply and then get selected for the subsequent years of the race as well?
Yeah. So there's two parts, right? So the reference part is it depends. So like last year, I was flag marshal. This year I was a track marshal. So both years, because both years I've kind of come back after a break, I had to undergo like the sort of the specialist training as if I'm a newbie for both of the roles. So what happened is when I started in 2016, my first role was a track marshal. In 2017, 2018, I did flag. 2019, I was back to track. So every time it's like the I'm not consecutive in that role. I will, and if there's been like a gap of like 2 years or something, I'm required to sort of considered like a freshie for that role again, and I have to undergo that before I can get into the track. While I say that it's you have to undergo and like this thing, the they are not they are not extremely strict about it. I mean, they kind of want to impress upon you that it is to take things seriously, but I don't think anybody who has attended like the specialist training has not gone on to become like the marshal. I mean, they also don't want to, I think, randomly just cut off people, but they also want you to kind of like take it seriously, not kind of like just be, there to only have fun. So in that sense, they will kind of try to make it a bit more serious and say, hey, you have to pass this, pass that. But for most part, I don't think really like they really care much, or like they don't are not way too strict about it.
Understood.
Uh,
And you being a flag or a track, is it? Do you give your preference at all, or was it by is it assigned from their side?
So for most part, in my case, it's been like assigned. I can choose, like if I wanted to be any particular marshal, I can choose to be that. But what I've heard is that usually the first 3 years they try to rotate you through the different sort of the roles, and then you can kind of like, just so that you have a flavor for everything, and then you can kind of decide. Like from third year, you can kind of, I think, have a greater say on what role you want to do.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So this is just out of the movie, right? F1. So you cannot just enter the track as you go. Even if you are a racer or from the team or from what is the pit crew, you can't just enter and go save your opponent. It has to go through a protocol, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
You guys are well coordinated. Like all of you are interconnected, and only if you get an approval, you enter the track, or else you don't go in. That's
Exactly. Exactly. So you see, so for example, coming back to this photo where I had the, so let's see, so like I was saying, this gentleman being my sector chief, you see, he's always on comms. And you can see that almost always there'll be at least like 2 or 3 people in the sector who are always on some sort of comms. They'll be on a headset, they'll be like connected to race control. So they'll have an idea of what is happening, and they'll be communicating to them as well, like, hey, so if something happens in our sector, for example, they will tell, hey, they'll kind of call into race control, say race control, to race control, this is sector 13. We have debris on the racing line, somewhere like 13.2 drivers, right? We need like 30 seconds to go retrieve it. So you kind of have to convey that entire message to race control. And then race control will kind of, if it's a race or something of sort, they will look for an appropriate window during which they can send out the marshals onto the track. So only then you can go. I think for medical it should be something similar where they, of course, medical might take a bit more priority, but they also still have to call into race control, kind of like get the permission, make sure that the marshals' lives are not in danger first, and
yeah,
then you can go and do whatever needs to be done. In
because the
fact,
cars around 300 kilometers per hour speed or something like that.
exactly, yeah,
And,
exactly.
you can't even see them in the naked eye. That's what I heard. I have not seen a race, but I have heard. So, and they also should be aware there are people on track.
Yeah.
So they slow down or they take a diversion or whatever. So for this, they slow down the race if they don't find a window or how it is.
So that there's like multiple ways in which you can do this recovery. So you can have it such that so let's say it's a pretty major crash, right? And it requires a fair amount of time for, let's say, vehicles to be recovered, to be removed from the circuit itself, right? Then you will have like you see this whiteboard that says SC, basically that means safety car. So that means they'll usually get like they'll either get the safety car to come, which will in turn control the pace of uh, the entire set of the race cars,
Yeah.
or they will do what is known as they'll stop the race. So you see the red flag here. So if
Yeah.
you wave the red flag, then it means that the race has been stopped, and typically all the race cars will go back to the pits. So under these scenarios, it's far more serious, and both the safety car and the red flag is basically only, I mean, we don't get to decide. At the sector level, we don't get to decide. It is decided purely at the race control level. So they decide whether it has to be a safety car or it's worse than that, and the session has to be stopped. So they'll then ask us to send out like show a red flag. And even this, right, there's like protocols. They have to like mention it like 6 times. So they have to call red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. Only then you are supposed to show the red flag.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
If they just say red flag, and then don't complete it 6 times, you don't show it.
Oh,
Yeah, it has to be called. So at least in Singapore, the thing is it has to be called 6 times. That is the
and
protocol for us.
the track is so loud and you don't have a headset, say for example, how do you even hear all those things?
So that's why. So we might not hear it, but the sector chief would.
Hearing, okay.
And someone usually near the where the flag marshals are present, usually there'll be like an observer as well, and the observer is on the full same set of comms. So if it comes through, it'll come through on that their loop result. They'll let us know immediately. We'll show.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions
All
at this
these are
point?
coming from the movie, right? Because see, even the movie was actually an eye opener. I didn't even know a lot of things, but we were all seeing it from the driver and the pit crew point of view. But we
Uh,
didn't know the support staff how these things work for them. So again, thank you. This is actually giving us a lot of idea.
yeah, happy about that. Happy to hear that. So just before I get to some of the other stuff, I just wanted to mention like a funny incident that happened like I think it was 2018 when I was at this turn 10. So during that year, actually, we had like support races. We also had like Ferraris that were racing, like street legal, not street legal, but sports car Ferraris racing. So what happened was that, and this is a mixture of like some of them are slightly on the professional side, some of them are, but a fair amount of them are amateurs, right? So what happened was that so there's a guy who was racing. This was on Saturday, and he came really fast, right? It's a left-hand turn, right? So what he did was he missed the turn, and because here you have all of these barriers, and then we stand much behind the barriers so that we are also protected. And so the guy that Ferrari guy driving a Ferrari sports car came crashed into this, and then we were helping to recover his car and all of that. And then Sunday becomes another race for the Ferrari guys. It's the same guy, same car, same spot. He crashes again. It's like unbelievable about how much of a coincidence that happens, and that's sort of like you can sort of see like the Ferraris that are there, like literally close by. It's almost like as if it's in your parking lot that close they were. So it was quite interesting and amusing. Okay, so I'll just show you how it looks like at the sector. So let's start. So you can see. So if you remember the image, so the image that I had of myself, right, was basically standing somewhere here with the background as the race. So what you see here, where that vehicle is going, this is like the race direction. So it's a left-hand corner again, left-hand turn as well, and that's how it's going. And oops, you can see like you come from down there, and then you can see. So this is where we are. So you can see the JCB, and you can see all the barriers here, and you can see like some of the flag page and stuff here that is there. So this is roughly how like the sector was. So it's basically we are standing behind barriers. What used to be like, or what is actually a road, but for the purposes of the race, it has been signals have been switched off and that part has been cordoned off. But and behind that is the Fullerton Hotel. So you could see that there's like a long stretch on both sides. That is where kind of like our sector was. So the coverage that we had was a fair bit. So I'm fairly certain that if you walk like up and down like 4 times, you're already covered like 4,000 or 5,000 steps or something like that. So it was quite a distance. And just to kind of add on, right? So if you see, um, so towards here. So this is like a really long straight. So what happened was that, and it's also a DRS zone. So what that means is that the cars can go faster and they can also try to overtake as well. So there's like a platform somewhere here that we can climb up to and check. Just occasionally, just kind of monitor and come back. And if you stand here, you can literally feel both the air as well as the vibrations as the cars go like really fast. They go like literally flat out. You can really we could really feel that when you were standing in these points. It's quite sort of pretty cool that way, but also pretty noisy, given how close you are in terms of the full speed cars here. So I'm not sure if I've bored you guys a lot, but what I thought I could also tell you about is what happens or what do you do as a flag marshal, right? So you have these sort of different flags here. This is what we are supposed to kind of use. So for most part, we use like the blue, green, white, yellow, the red and the yeah, the red and the other ones. The red is only upon race control saying, and these are like fairly less common ones. And unfortunately, I've not had a chance yet to ever be able to be in a position to wave the checkered flag. But yeah, so just let me give you an idea of what the flags mean. So we were talking about like a crash, right? So I think Mani, you were asking like if there are marshals on track and if the drivers don't even know or can't even see or don't realize that there are marshals on track. So what happens is that anytime there is a crash in your sector, right? Then you're supposed to show a yellow. That basically tells the driver, hey, look, there's danger ahead. Be ready to slow down. And if there are like if the danger is quite significant, you usually have two yellow flags. So you'll wave a double yellow. You will have two yellow flags and you'll wave them both. Anytime there is a marshal on track, you will wave a double yellow. So that way, if necessary, the race cars are at a speed where they can stop easily. So they are kind of like warned well in advance as much as possible. The if there's a yellow, so what happens is if you have a yellow flag, it means that you cannot overtake in that sector, in that wherever the yellow flag is being shown. So you can only overtake and you can only start racing again once you have passed a green flag. So let's say if there's a crash that has happened like near turn 13. So 13 will pretty much show like a yellow flag saying that hey, something is wrong. Please be careful. Now 14 onwards, if nothing has happened there, 14 will try to show a green. So that as long as you're past 13, you've gone past that green flag, you can start racing again. Note, just be careful, or rather just remember that the cars can only start racing after they've crossed the green flag, not before. Not that they have seen the green flag, they cannot start racing. They have to go past the green flag, then they can.
Understood.
So
What
This
if the player is so studious and just want to use the opportunity to cross someone? I
sorry,
know that rules, but there are arrogant people who don't follow them, right?
I
Like
no,
think
no, but
I also had that question. இப்போ இதெல்லாம் violate பண்ணா obviously they will be penalized in terms of their
yep,
points. Is that the understanding?
you can be penalized for points. You can be disqualified. You can be hit with a what is a drive-through penalty. They can add like whatever penalties they want. But not doing this is basically, in a sense, uh,
it's
pretty stupid for them. They are
okay.
endangering their own reputation as well.
Correct, but how is this measured in the sense like IoT devices or cameras are placed like to identify whether all cars are or rather all drivers are ensuring that
Following the
say
So
what.
rules.
yeah, so that is why you have the other role, right? The observers. Their job is to see if someone is not obeying the rules.
ஓகே அவன் கிரிக்கெட்ல ஸ்கோர் கார்டு எழுதுற மாதிரி அவனோட வேலையை அதுதான் ஃபுல்லா.
Yes,
There.
yes.
Okay, understood. Okay,
So
I forgot that. Okay. Okay.
yeah, so that's what that's why. So I've only been like a flag and a track, not never an observer. But from whatever I've seen, the observers are required to do that. Just remember, they are required to do this. Like even let's say there's an incident or something that is like let's say there's a slight contact between two cars, but everything okay. They are still required to call that in and let them know. Okay, let the race control know. The interesting part is the cars are going at high speed. So they have to look in that nanosecond that it flashes by. They have to know which car it is, which team it is, which driver it is. Because each team has two drivers.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
keep switching.
So what you can rely on is like usually above where like where the F1 driver sits. There's like sort of a projection like the behind his head, right? There's like a headrest and stuff, and then there's a small structure on top of that. It's either it will be in one of two colors, yellow or black. So you have to either make note of that or you have to make note of the car number. And then you will use that to call it in. So that's how they do it.
And all this is done in real time in an application or something, so it goes back to race control.
You call in everything. Application you just call in.
Everything is reporting by voice, then, huh?
Yes, it's a reporting by voice.
Okay, understood.
Yeah. So coming back to flags here, blue and white are a bit more basically for like slow moving cars. So white is just basically for you to tell cars that are approaching that there is a slow moving car in your vehicle in your sector. So that if he's coming really fast, he knows that he'll probably have to slow down because it's a slow moving vehicle. So இது வந்து yellow and green வந்து must be obeyed. Yellow, red and green must be obeyed. White is like just sort of an advisory flag. கேட்கறனா கேளு கேட்காட்டி போவோம். It's your wish, right? My job is to warn you. That's how it works. Blue is basically you show it to a slower moving car when it's going to be overtaken by something faster. Usually when this happens, it's because the slower car is like a lap behind the faster car. Like the race leader has gone fast enough that he's caught up with the last car and wants to go past the last car. So usually at that point of time, the last car should not kind of obstruct the race leader, but should kind of move away so that the race leader goes ahead. They're not competing for position. He's just been quick fast enough to do that. Yeah.
And the flag marshals decision of these using of the flags are how much of the actions are entirely in their control and how much is dependent on an observer reporting and then you hearing it validating about the
No,
protocol.
no, 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 no. So for let's say for the race for F1 for the race, blue flag is usually under race control because we don't know who is lapping who or whatever we don't know. Okay, but yellow and red, no, sorry, yellow and green is always at the local flag marshal though. This one yellow cannot wait for the observer to call in to let race control blah blah blah. By that time, 4 cars would have gone by. No, if you see an incident, immediately the flag goes out.
Understood. And if you don't see it, if you all clear na green காமிச்சிக்கிட்டே இருப்பாங்க
இல்ல
continue.
இல்ல 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 green. You don't have to show green. You only have to show a green if there is a yellow in front.
Understood. Okay, understood. Okay.
So what was just to make this a bit more complicated, the coverage is usually not really sector. So it's usually between flag cage to flag cage. So இங்க வந்து wherever the flag marshals are located is usually a flag cage. Flag cage is a sort of a metal structure with kind of like 2 openings. One will be looking at the oncoming race cars. The other will be looking at the race cars as they go further down the track. Okay, and so இதான் வந்து flag cage. And from this flag cage to the next flag cage is the coverage.
பட் ஸ்டில் அது வந்து பிட்வீன் த செக்டார்ஸ் தான் 13 and 14 பட் நீங்க அதை
Yes.
ஃபிளாக் கால் பண்றீங்க.
Um, Yes and no, because not always does the sector and the flag cage kind of like overlap exactly. So there'll be some slight
For one
கொஞ்சம் back
sector.
and forth. Yeah. So the that that brings me to the next point. So apart from the physical flags that are shown, you also have these sort of light panels. சரியா the light panels these are like these kind of like big behemoth structures that kind of flash the colors depending on like whatever is a necessity. So in this particular case it's flashing red, but usually you press like yellow or green or whatever. So இதுக்கு usually again one person will be controlling the light panel. The comedy என்னன்னா the light panel, even though you might have a light panel control in your sector, it will not be in the flag cage, and in some cases you might not even know where exactly the light panel is. So you have to kind of like guess roughly where it is, find out by talking to the other sectors, and then try to see how you can work out a mechanism by which you can communicate via the light panels.
இது புரியல. Each sector does not have a light. Each sector does have a light panel, no? No.
May or may not have.
Okay. Okay. So which
So
means, but
ல இருக்கு
23 sectors
14ல
இருக்கு.
இல்லைன்னா
23
13ஓட
sectors. Sorry.
சாரி சார்
Go
கோ
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
13ல இருக்கு 14ல இல்ல 13ல ஃபிளாக் அந்த சிக்னல் என்னது அது, அந்த பேனலா
Light panel.
14ல இருக்குதுன்னா 13ஓட கம்யூனிகேஷனை பேஸ் பண்ணி 14 மாத்திப்பாரு.
Sort of.
But you guys are interconnected again between sectors also.
Yes, yes. The light panel இது பண்றவங்க usually they also have a set of comms.
It's an additional way of signaling wherein the driver is enabled. If in case he misses the actual flag, he refers to the light. Obviously, they
Yes.
should be in sync. There should not be any deviation between what he. Obviously, அதுக்கு அந்த மைக்ரோ செகண்ட்ல நடுவில் ஏதாவது சேஞ்ச் ஆச்சுன்னா obviously லைட்டும் சேஞ்ச் ஆகும். But the expectation is what the flag manual flag is to match the light panel that he sees. If at all there is a light panel in the same sector. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
You're not wrong, but again the catch is the coverage of the light panel is light panel to light panel, not flag cage to flag cage.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
So that is why it can be like, for example, எங்களோட ட்ரைனிங் இல்லையே சில இதில் வந்திருக்கு, like you can have a place where the crash happens, let's say just after where the light the coverage of the light panel starts, but before where the coverage of the flag cage flag starts. So the light panel will show yellow, but the flag will show green.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that way it is not. I mean, it becomes quite a bit confusing, but I mean,
I'm just thinking, I'm just empathizing the drivers more. Beyond whatever that they're doing, they have to process all these things as well.
பேக் லாஜிக்கை யோசிச்சுட்டு கால்குலேட் பண்ணி இதுதான் பார்ப்பானா.
Actually, for drivers, it is easy. If you see a yellow, slow down. That's it. Doesn't matter. First yellow you see, slow down. Then green you see, you speed up. அவ்வளவுதான் அவங்களுக்கு. It is the other ones that is a bit more sync. So இதுல என்னன்னா, once you press on yellow, right, in the light panels, this is also what gets broadcast on in TV. So திடீர்னு வந்து எங்கேயாவது இதான் yellow flag அப்படின்னு sector 3 or something போடுறான்னா, அந்த திடீர்னு வந்து கீழே பார்த்தோன்னா there will be like a ticker or something that says that there will be like a sudden flash news மாதிரி. That is because someone in their light panel would have pressed. Because of some incident, most likely they would have pressed. So that gets instantly beamed into the live telecast. And the same thing actually also goes to the drivers as well. In their steering wheels, they can actually see that. They also get a notification about it. So the drivers are quite well informed. The poor souls are the marshals.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
நீங்க எட்டு ஃபிளாகையும் வச்சுக்கிட்டே தான் இருப்பீங்களா? எது வேணுமோ அப்பப்போ ரைஸ் பண்ணுவீங்களா? இல்ல ஈச் கை வில் ஹேவ் த கரஸ்பாண்டிங் கலர்?
இல்ல. So in a flag cage, only 2 flag marshals are allowed.
Okay.
So like I said, one has to look at the oncoming race. The other is going to see the race as it's going away from him or her. Yeah. So the one that is looking at the race will usually hold on to the green. Because he can see if the one in front is showing yellow or not. If the one in front is showing yellow and nothing has happened here in his case, then he has to show green. அவனை தாண்டி எதுவும் ஆள் இல்ல.
பட் இது உங்களோட லீட கேட்டு செய்யணும்னு அவசியம் இல்ல. யுவர் டிசிஷன்.
இதுக்கெல்லாம் வந்து கேட்கறதுக்கு டைமே கிடையாது.
ஓகே.
It's as the minute you see it, you react.
Okay.
And usually the distance between the sectors are
quite huge, right?
Enough for you to see the previous thing manually, like the manual flag.
So usually the sectors themselves may not be exactly very close, but what they also have done is to have things called like mirror posts. So if there's a post that is like sufficiently difficult to spot, for example, they'll have a mirror post somewhere in front of it. So the mirror post only value is if the post downstream
Correct.
is showing something, is
Understood.
showing a yellow, the mirror post has to show the yellow. So
Understood.
that they
So that
can
may not be a sector in itself, but it's a mirror post.
yes, may or
Okay.
may not be a full sector, but yeah, it is there's a post usually.
Understood.
Usually. So this is what you see here is considered like a full complement of flags. For a mirror post, usually maybe it's just the yellow, maybe the red, and then the green. Nothing else will be required.
Okay, okay.
So
Have you operated this machine yourself? Yet
yes,
oh,
yes. So
very
you
good.
see here, right? So the reason for the flag marshal and me with the headset is because I was then on comms to say like, hey, if I'm required to press anything under race control instructions, then I would do that as well. So yes, I have.
Super. Okay.
I mean, it's like usually even between the flag marshals, they will rotate. Like 4 பேர் இருந்தாங்கன்னா, like 2 will be in the flag cage, 1 will be in the light panel, and then 1 or 2 might be taking rest. That way. The thing about flag being a flag marshal is that the flag cage must always be manned. So even when like the track is like what is considered to be open or whatever, like there's no race cars and there can be movement of people, you always need to have someone in the flag cage because they always have to cover whatever is happening. இப்போ தானே இப்போ குட்ஸ் வண்டி வருது லைக் ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் they usually have like these vehicles to come and give us like water, isotonic drinks, um, ice, all of that. So when those vehicles come, we need to kind of again show the flag that white flag saying that there's a slow moving vehicle on track. If there are the track marshals that go out to see how the state of the circuit is, then they have to show like a yellow flag to warn any car that's coming that hey, there are folks out on track. So with the flag thing, there must always be a person in the flag cage. So from the moment we reach the sector till like we stand down at the end of the day, there must always be a person in the flag manning the flag cage.
Got it. And when you talk about this flag versus track versus
Observer.
observers, um, is it the case that for each race you are assigned at the start, even during the practice and followed by the race day, you continue the same thing, or is it subject to change for any other constraints?
So we are given the allocation by like July. The race happened like this year, the race happened in October. We knew our roles by July. So you are all the specialist training or whatever briefing and thing that you need to do, you attend based on whatever has been assigned to you. And for that year, it is that. Unless there's a last minute change for whatever reason.
Okay, which means upfront what the role
Yep.
is going to be for this year.
Yep. Yep. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
So I've spoken a lot about flag. I'll just give a brief one about track as well. So if you see like any time during a race, if you guys watch, there'll be like these, and you see something like signs that are sent like this, right? So these are like typically things that were either not just the track marshal, any marshal can do, but usually you are more likely to see the track marshals are uh, doing this because they are the ones who can most likely to rush and go see the what's happening and then give a report. The more like the most common one would think is something like these. The arms that are crossed overhead, where it says like medical attention needed, or something like patting your head, saying I need assistance, all of that. Um, so one of the running jokes that we typically have when they're trainers is, so you have this thumbs up, right? When you say the driver is okay, a situation under control, you say driver okay. People will just go, will show this when they teach us. And then sometimes what they do is like they'll tell us driver not okay. Some people end up doing thumbs down, and it usually is quite amusing because you're not supposed to do a thumbs down. You're supposed to say you either need assistance or you have to say medical attention needed. Right. thumbs down காமிக்கூடாது, thumbs up காமிச்சதுனால thumbs down காமிச்சிட opposite அது கிடையாது. It is like you have to be a bit more specific on what is needed. So every time there's at least like one or two people, including myself, who have just going with the flow. Like just when it's like driver okay, then driver not okay, then you get the totally it's not thumbs down. It has to be the other way around.
Yeah, like more specificity because everything is tied to an action in real time, like
Exactly,
as close
exactly.
to real
So
time, so
let's
that
say if you put
it
so if you
save
see like for
time or save
example,
lives.
yep. So if you say medical attention required, I presume the who's that? The medics, the medical team. If you have like some of the medical marshals in your sector, they'll probably rush over to come and check. So if you see here, so this is a photo taken by I think one of the sector mates. I think a sister or someone was attending the race, and it so happened that this incident happened quite close to where we are. So this is so you see the JCB that's gone out, and this is roughly the sector where we are at, right? So if you see in this image, and I know it's a pretty small one, but you can see that there's a small car here. The small car here is actually the Porsche, and what happened was that I think the driver lost grip or something and almost crashed into the sector, which is why you see the medical in green are checking on the driver who's in white here. Thankfully, we got a chance to go test or not test to kind of recover the car, where we had to like push the car a fair distance. They got like a tilt train. So what that does is they'll come and they'll attach like a towing cable to the car, and then the towing cable will pull the car up sort of a tilted ramp, and then kind of put it on a flat bed, and then it'll take it away. So this sort of thing, the ones that typically go out to recover the car are usually the track marshals. In this particular case, so I was telling you, right? So there's like we had in my sector, there was an Australian guy and an English guy. So the Australian guy was the one who was sitting inside the Porsche when they were doing the recovery. In the comedy என்னன்னா வந்து, so the guy left the car, I think, put the car in neutral and then came off, the driver. There's a slight bit of slope there that took place. So what happened was that the car slowly rolled and went and hit into the barrier very slowly. But it was quite interesting to see that it when I initially saw it, I saw it move and was like wondering what happened. Then I realized that there is a small slope there that goes. And but thankfully the driver was all okay, no problem. I think there's like something I think he banged into this some side somewhere and then ended up losing control and came into the sector or something to that effect. So this is from this year. So you can see that the crane has gone out to try and help. There's a couple of marshal here who's also trying to help and all of that. So yeah, this is something that was fun, sort of a fun thing that happened this year. So even though the marshal is standing here, this is not too bad because this is still not near the racing line. The racing line is further to the right. So அதான் track limits for the racing for the race cars. So this is off track limits. So அதனால they can just happily go around and not happily go around. We can try to recover cars from here without much hindrance to either the race or like requiring that the race stop or something else. So yeah, this is my last slide. I know I have taken a fair amount of your time. So I just wanted to say that kind of give you guys a rough idea of what happens over a race weekend. So in the 3.5 days, there are so many events that happen, um, sort of consecutive, sometimes with little time interval between them. But yeah, there's a fair amount that happens, and there's like so many different functions that come together that have to operate sort of in sync, even at the sector level. So you can imagine how the operations is in terms of the whole race itself. Um, and what I've told you is only like a very small subset. Upon the like observers, I don't think I've done much justice because I have only told you like from whatever I know about them, not from personal experience. There's a whole lot that happens with observers as well, how they have to call what they have to tell, how they have to spot, all of that. Um, then even the sector chiefs, in fact, what I've heard is that for the sector chiefs, typically in 1 year they are connected to one channel, and the other year they're connected to a different channel. So it's like they're different listening to two different broadcasts at the same time. I don't know how they manage. I don't know if that's true, and how they manage to do it. But I think it's if it is, I think it's pretty impressive.
This is like being ambidextrous or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's yeah, but usually these sector chiefs are like kind of volunteers who have been doing this for decades, and then they get the opportunity on experience and validation. Is that the understanding? Okay.
Sort of. I mean, like recently, from what I know, they have this, like I said, training sector chief program. So those are like upcoming sector chiefs um, who are evaluated during their uh, during their training period, whether they can be given like a sector chief or not. But otherwise, yeah, for most part, they've been doing it for at least like 10 years or something like that.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah.
And obviously, the most interesting question or last 2 points on signing up. Before that, Venu, you did cover what you have not covered. This need not stop here. Shalini is doing her part two. I am doing my part two in terms of the series. So whenever you get time, you can do the next year or something, right? So you can continue what you wanted to.
Could be the sector chief or controller, who knows, you know.
201, 201, 101 முடிச்சிட்டோம் 20 just in request, putting this request in place.
Sure,
Venu
sure.
informed whatever I told. Right, Macha?
Sure.
Yeah, and the sign-ups on the maybe we'll talk offline. Any age limit on this or any professional achievement or educational? I know that's a black box that you said. What do they consider? But some sort of guardrails needs to be there, right?
Not really, because I know there are like people who are as young as probably 18 or 21, and there are people as old as like 65.
Okay.
So
Oh.
it's really a huge range that is there uh, in terms of like age. I don't think they have any requirements for education or something of the sort. They're not.
And is it the case even if it's also a smaller country like Singapore? You say 900 is an average requirement to run the show. Uh, how is this demand? Like meaning is it people? Because now not everybody will be, even though it's interesting, not everybody will be ready ready to sign up for because of the operational what do I call, what is the right word, operational nightmare, right, in terms of your own attention span, your own capability to do stuff in a very to be fair to the expectation, right? So அந்த அதனால தான் நீ இன்டர்நேஷனல் ஒர்க்ஸ் மோஸ்ட் வெல்கம் போட்டிருக்கியா இல்ல how does it or what
No,
is
no.
the
So
thing? Yeah.
no, the rationale is if you are interested, you can sign up. If so, I think so. Like I was saying, right? Like there's an Australian who was part of our team this year. So he apparently does take part in like the Australian Grand Prix as well. There he's a recovery marshal there. Then we had like a pretty senior gentleman from England who was like an observer this year. I think he typically just does an observer role, but
To
he
come
has
down
been.
late, once during the training and the enrollment part, and once during the actual race.
No, so for
Mm.
them, so for
Things
no,
are.
like, so for them, I think the advantage they have is that because they have done at their home races, and they are like there's like in the motorsport of their particular country, they are sort of accredited, or like they have like some they have what do I say, they're like a member of that. So as a result, they I think there is a bit of a bit more leeway given to them. But I don't think it's like like you need to be extremely experienced to have to you know to come down for the F1. I mean, my point is simple. If you are interested, you let me know. I can tell you when the signups are open, and then we can. If you get in, then we can see. I think if there's an international, if you are, because you guys become international volunteers, there might be some things that are relaxed for you. Some trainings you might have to attend, but they can probably try to squeeze you in some manner, like work with you to see what is doable.
Got it.
Okay, great.
Any questions from other folks? Adit, Jivita, Serin, Sudashi?
Yes, I had a question
Yep.
regarding the training. What is the training period and how does it differ like with the different things like flag marshal and everything?
Okay, so because the bulk of the people who are training, right, or who are marshalling and volunteering are basically volunteers. So and they're working adults for most part, or they have their own like college or school or whatever it is. So what happens is that the training usually is one weekend, once usually just one session in a weekend that is kind of like mentioned kind of well in advance. So I think this year, I think one of my sessions was in either July or August. I can't remember. Uh, one or two sessions that are there. And because this year I was a track marshal, there is like an additional thing where I had to kind of come down for a practical sort of a session. Um, so it's like about two or three sessions that are at most four sessions of training that are there. It's usually just over a weekend live just for like one session itself. It's about 4 hours potentially. That's about it in terms of the time commitment. Mainly because the folks, everyone has their own. They are not paid, so they have their own things to attend to, and can't be
Even
expected
if
to
it's
make exam.
international, the guy who is coming from Hungary or say the British guy, they'll have to make sure that they need to come to this June, July thing, attend and then go back, correct?
Illa. So for the international ones, so it really depends. So from whatever I've seen, for most part, they have not had to come down because some of them I think is because they are accredited with their country's motorsport organization.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a different topic altogether. Okay, understood.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about the perks here? Like, just because you are a what is marshal,
Hmm.
you happen to view it, yes. So it's kind of a free pass, let us tell. But if it is an international folk, they have to take care of everything, right? So nothing else is provided.
Yeah.
Allowing you in is the only thing they will give you.
Yes. I mean, bluntly put, yes. They also give you two. Usually, they've been giving us like two family passes. So usually tickets for. I mean, they'll give you two tickets that you can for friends or family. So your friends or family can attend the race weekend as well. I mean, they can attend as like a regular um, visitor, but without having to pay for the ticket. They give you like
Okay,
two tickets. Yeah. So that's like the bigger perk essentially.
got it. Yeah, awesome.
Okay, I think we are on time, or rather beyond time. Anything else, Venu, from your side?
No, that's it from me. I hope this was not too boring. I hope it was interesting and you guys had an idea of what happens behind the scenes and uh, basically this is drive to survive behind the scenes. So yeah,
Sure. Yeah,
hopefully.
that's a good way to put it and end as well. Sorry, my kid is around. If at all you are getting background noise. Thank you so much, all of you who have spent their Sunday evening listening to this. Thank you so much again, especially for Venu to taking this up. We wanted to cover this in season one, but it got slipped over, so we are doing this now. Just for the folks who are attending and eventually be listening to this in YouTube, the next session is going to be in November, hosted by Jagdish. He's going to cover on the topic of his interest and hobby on photography. So, photography 101 is what we are going to learn in November. The weekends, the schedule is not yet fixed, but I'll work with him and then set things up. Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. I'm stopping the recording. Bye. Good night.